read 2 verses to get started. 2 verses. There are 31,102 verses in the Bible. If you get these 2, like really get these 2, you won't even recognize yourself by this time next year. Let's read it together. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Well, Solomon gives us a very simple framework to think about when it comes to making decisions. He really boils every decision down to 2 different options. Either you can trust God's way, or you can try to lean on your own understanding. So Solomon's basically going like, hey, listen, every decision that you make, you don't have to try to be a human on your own. God has given us answers and principles to live by. So like forgiveness. Forgiveness can be really difficult, especially when we're leaning on our own understanding, because our own understanding is pretty much just like, don't do it. God's way, what Jesus said was, hey, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. And you go, Ryan, that doesn't make any sense. I know. That's why I don't lean on my own understanding. It doesn't make any sense to me either. But God gives us a way that we can live. Or you talk about when it comes to relationships, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to finances, when it comes to how we steward our time. All throughout God's word, he's giving us principles to live by. And when we lean on those principles, everything starts to change. The temptation is that our own understanding starts to look like really alluring sometimes, right? Like we know, I'm supposed to follow God's way, but then there's this like my understanding, and as humans, we just start to think like, I feel like I know quite a bit of stuff though. And so I don't know, I've been alive for a few decades, I've read a couple books, maybe I should start leaning on my own understanding. And our own understanding like makes us feel like we're gonna be okay, makes us feel like we're stable, but it's all an illusion. And humans have been falling for this trap ever since the Garden of Eden. The 3rd page of your Bible talks about how Adam and Eve were leaning on God's way and trusting God's way until the serpent says, yeah, but did God really say that? And then they go, oh, I wonder, maybe we should lean on our own understanding, and then everything falls apart. King David was known as a man after God's own heart. He was doing everything right, and then he saw Bathsheba one day, and he's like, yeah, but maybe I could lean on my own understanding for like a little bit, and everything falls apart. Peter, there's a story of Peter getting out of a boat in the middle of a lake because Jesus goes, hey, if you want to walk on water, you can. And Peter gets out of the boat, and he starts walking on water toward Jesus until he looks to his left and he looks to his right and he sees the wind and he sees the rain and his own understanding kicks in and he goes, wait a second, I shouldn't be able to do this right now. And he starts to sink. Notice it's leaning on your own understanding that gets in the way of the miracle. But more on that next week because we got to talk about having the right mindset for a miracle. This week, what I'm trying to help us see, and I'm just going to say it over and over and over again, is as alluring as my understanding sounds, it just doesn't work. And so what starts to happen is we go, no, okay, I know that they said at church like I should trust God's way, but you're like, maybe I'll do forgiveness my way. You know, like maybe I'll just do finances my way. Maybe I'll just do relationships my way. And we start leaning, and then all of a sudden, we're like, wait, what happened? It looks so stable, you know? Like it looked like that was gonna hold me up. And then before you know it, you fall down and you're like, this is usually for me where I start to make the excuses, you know? Where it's like something in your career didn't work out and then you're just like, well, it's just the job market, you know? The relationship didn't work out and you're like, well, dating, it's just hard right now, you know? And all of that stuff is true. I'll give you that. We live in a broken, fallen world. All the more reason why we shouldn't trust our own understanding and lean on our own understanding, but put our trust back in God's way. Every single decision you make this year, you have the opportunity to go, you know what? I'm not gonna lean on my own understanding. It's a very simple sermon. It's also got so many layers to it that I'm just gonna keep going because I want you to take this home with you this week. Like when things start to happen this week and you start to make decisions, I want you to stop and remember what happens when you try to lean on your own understanding. And so let's get back to our passage one more time. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Now, at every campus, somebody tell me, what is the shortest distance between 2 points? It's a straight line. Which means if you are here at the beginning of 2026 and you want to get there, the easiest, most efficient way to do that is to let God make your path straight. And then you will get there way faster, way easier, and you'll sleep way better along the way. And that sounds so simple, but somebody asked the Israelites when they were wandering in the wilderness about that. It took them 40 years to leave Egypt and get to Israel. Is that a 40-year journey? No. Deuteronomy 1 verse 2 tells us this. It takes 11 days to go from Horeb, which is Mount Sinai, close to where they began, to Kadesh Barnea, which is like the south side of the Promised Land by the Mount Seir Road. 11-day journey. Give them a couple days off. Let's give them 13 days. It took them 40 years. Why? Because they started out on the journey and then they started leaning on their own understanding and they just took this crazy scenic route to try to get to where they're going. And I just feel like this year, God's going, hey, you don't have to take the scenic route. Like, you trust me, I'll make the path straight for you. If you're new to this whole experience, you're like, okay, so like, what do I really do? Let's even go a layer down. Give me like 2 really practical steps. So glad you asked. How do you not lean on your own understanding but instead trust God's way? 2 things this year. You pray and you fast. You pray and you fast. That's why we begin every single year with 21 days of prayer and fasting. Now, we're going to begin those 21 days, not this Monday, but next Monday, so January 12th. We're diving into 21 days. We do this year round, by the way. We don't just pray during January, but for 21 days, like we're gonna get really intentional about leaning in and praying and fasting. A quick word on both. First, prayer is the opposite of leaning on your own understanding. Prayer is trusting God's way. I love how Paul says it in Philippians 4, verse 6, where he says this, don't worry about anything, instead pray about everything. Leaning on your own understanding is worrying about everything and praying about nothing. So he goes, flip it. Instead of doing that, stop worrying about everything. How? By trusting God and praying about everything. Paul's going, there's nothing too big or too small for you to pray about, but every time you just go, here you go, God, I'm gonna pray. I'm just going to pray about this. Then you can walk out of there going, I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's in God's hands. I'm still gonna work for it, but I don't have to worry about it because I know that God's got it. The world shouts at us to run after our own understanding, but God's way is just pray about it and trust him. And so here's a homework assignment this week, and I'm serious about this. We're getting so serious about miracles being a team sport this year that we wanna be praying for each other. And so there's a plate on your seat at every campus. If you tap that plate with your phone, you can sign up to submit prayer requests. And I wanna ask you, you just hit the top button, the top right corner there. You can submit a prayer request. You got a week to do this. I wanna ask you to do that because Doug and Sean are going to be talking about this over the next few weeks, that we're not just going to be submitting prayer requests, we're actually going to be getting serious about praying for one another. It's a beautiful feature on the app because it allows all of us to pray for each other. Like I was nervous about the sermon this morning. I was at the coffee shop and I was talking to Doug and he was like, why don't you just stop and pray for some people for a second? And I got the app out and I just went through, and it's cool because it tells you like what campus they're at. And so like Littleton, you can be praying for Lakewood. Park Meadows, you can be praying for Austin. Brussels, we can be praying for Arvada. We can be praying for each other this year. And here's why I say all that. Like I want you to have thousands of people praying for your miracle alongside with you. And so prayer. We're gonna get super intentional and really serious about it, especially over these 21 days of prayer and fasting. But I've been doing this long enough to know that the prayer part wasn't the part that intimidated everybody when I said 21 days of prayer and fasting. It's the second word, it's the fasting word. Fasting is I think, the most intimidating spiritual discipline. Fasting is simply going without what you want so you can press in and rely on what you need. so that you can make room for God to work and move in your life. The problem is we think about it, I feel like in such a black and white way that it's like, oh, I guess I'm gonna fast, like I gotta go 40 days in the wilderness like Jesus, you know? And then you get to like hour 3 and you're like, I can't do it. I guess fasting isn't for me. So let me see if I can, in 3 minutes, just simplify fasting and make this easy and accessible for us. Like if you were training, if you wanted to start running, you wouldn't be like, I'm gonna go run an ultra marathon tomorrow, right? You'd be like, let's try to run around the block. So we're gonna do the same thing with fasting. Now, for 21 days, I'm not telling you can't eat anything for 21 days. So let's break this down. I wanna give you 4 different options that you can choose from. So your second homework assignment this week is to decide which of these 4 options you're going to do this week. And by the way, I'll give you the couple-minute version. If you want to take a deeper dive, tap the plate, and we created videos and a whole bunch. We nerded out for a while about fasting, so you can learn as much as you want. But here we go. Fast number 1 is called the soul fast. The soul fast. The soul fast has nothing to do with food. Real talk for a second. Food can be a very complicated subject for a lot of people. Get that. If there are reasons why you shouldn't fast from food, obviously, medical reasons, we get that, but other personal reasons why you shouldn't fast from food, go with the soul fast this year. The soul fast is choosing something other than food to abstain from. Social media is the easiest. And if I may, can we all just decide to get off social media for 21 days? Okay. So it's a good tool, all the balancing statements, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It'll still be there when you get back. Getting off social media for 21 days. Another way to do it is non-essential screens. Notice I said non-essential. Your boss comes to you and is like, why didn't you respond to my email? You can't be like, oh, I'm doing the soul fast, you know? You gotta do your job still. We know the difference between a non-essential screen and an essential screen. Maybe you just put away non-essential screens for 21 days and watch how God will meet you there. Second fast is called the selective food fast. The selective food fast is where you select certain things to fast from. The Daniel fast is the most popular one of these. You can learn all about it in Daniel chapter 1. Or you can just decide to pick like coffee, alcohol, sweets. To be clear, I'm saying like abstain from those things, you know? You can't be like, Ryan said I can only eat dessert for 21 days. I don't know, I'm as mad as you are. Here's what happens though if you do that. By like day 3, there'll always be something like Frank will bring ice cream into the workplace, you know? Like, and you'll look at him and you'll go, get behind me, Satan. I'm kidding. Be nice to Frank. He's just trying to be kind. But there'll always be like sugar there tempting you. And then you'll get out of a really stressful meeting and leaning on your own understanding will say, I should go get some ice cream right now. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna go, no, I'm gonna trust, we're gonna do this fast. And so I'm gonna trust God's way here. And then you're gonna sit down and try to pray and try to invite God into the frustration that you're feeling. And if you sit long enough, you start to be like, well, why am I feeling this way? Well, because nobody listened to my opinion. Well, why does that frustrate you so much? Because I've got a good idea, but they didn't like it. Well, why do you need them to like it? Well, because I feel like the only time I'm like worth anything is when I'm adding value here. Well, why do you feel like that? And if you sit long enough, you'll start to hear God speak identity over you. That your identity is not wrapped up in what you add to this world, but that you are a son, that you are a daughter of the Most High. And then from that place of security, you'll go, yeah, you know what? That idea was like a 6 out of 10, but my next one's gonna be a 10 out of 10, and I don't have to come up with that next idea for that acceptance and for that love. I can go from a place of I'm already loved because I already know who God is. That's what starts to happen when you start to remove some of these things that we run to on our own understanding from our lives. Does that make sense? By the way, if you're like, that was an oddly specific transcript, that is I've gone through that like 100 times with God. But because I allow God into that place, like I've experienced so much deep healing in regards to that. Selective food fast, it's powerful. The third one is this partial food fast. That's where you do a complete food fast for a partial part of the day. So you can decide to skip your lunch and spend that hour praying. You can decide to fast until noon or fast until 3 p.m. or fast until the sun goes down. All throughout the Old Testament, they were always fasting until evening, which just meant the sun goes down. It's a powerful way to do it. And then the last one is a complete food fast where you just go liquids. You drink water, you drink juice, you drink protein drinks, you drink bone broth, becomes your best friend. This one is really challenging, and don't If you don't have a lot of experience fasting, let's not start there. Let that be something that you work your way up to. 21 days is a long time. We don't have to be heroes. We're not trying to take 20 steps. We're just trying to take one step this year. Take a step. Decide which of those 4 works for you. Again, you have a week to do it. You got a week to prepare your food. You have a week to set up whatever you need to set up to make sure that you can dive in. And then on January 12th, we're gonna get really serious about prayer and fasting, about going, hey, we're not gonna lean on our own understanding. We're gonna trust God's way. Does this make sense? All right, church. I know we've covered a lot of ground. And I wanna give you, as we close here, we're gonna sing a song called Promised Land, which is gonna become an anthem for our church this year as we pray for miracles. And I wanna teach you one Hebrew word that's gonna sum up everything that I just said, because you're here and you're like, what? Ryan's giving me so much. I gotta pray, I gotta fast, I gotta lean, not on my understanding, I gotta lean on God's understanding. Like, how do I just remember how to do all of this in one simple word? And it's a Hebrew word that comes from the story that began the Promised Land story that we're about to sing about. The Promised Land song that we're about to sing goes, your presence, God, is my promised land. And where it's so easy to get caught up in all the things that we're supposed to be doing for God, it's this reminder that all of this has always just been about one thing. It's been about realizing that God is here, and we're going to practice being in his presence together. Because here's the amazing thing about 2026. You give it to God, you won't recognize yourself a year from now, but it won't be because of your effort. It'll be because of God's power working in you. All these things I'm talking about, they're just vehicles to help you get closer to God. And so, the story is in Exodus chapter 3, and Moses is wandering in the wilderness. He's 80 years old at this point. And he's just a shepherd. He's walking late one night, and he sees a tree that's on fire. And to Moses' credit, he goes over to the tree. And God speaks to him from it and says, Moses, Moses. Now, I love that Moses walked over to the tree, because I just see him out at 80 years old. He could have easily just walked by. He could have easily just wandered another year in the wilderness. And I wonder if somebody's here at one of our locations today and you showed up to church for the first time here at the beginning of a new year, and the temptation's going to be, yeah, I know, it's cool. I think God's doing something in my life, maybe when I'm older. But what if this was the year that you realized that God's trying to speak to you right now, and you walked over and you said, okay, I'm here. Lord, I'm here. Do you have something to say to me? God goes, Moses, Moses. And Moses says one word. This is the word I want you to take away. It's the Hebrew word hineni. Hineni. Our closest English translation we can get to is here I am. Hineni doesn't just mean I'm here physically. How many know, like, you can go to a party, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're at that party if your mind's a million miles away. You can show up to church. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're at church if your mind's a million miles away. This word is Moses going, okay, God, I'm here. I'm here. But whatever you have for me, not just physically, but emotionally, I'm making myself available to you. I'm deciding in this moment, I'm not gonna lean on my way and my understanding right now. I'm going to trust that you have something for me. And I just wonder what may happen this year if you showed up with this posture every single morning of, okay, God, here I am, ready. If you know the story, you know that the very next thing that God says is take off your sandals. This is holy ground. I love that right from that invitation of Moses going, okay, I'm ready. The first thing God says is, okay, that can't come with. It's time to leave some of that stuff behind because I've got more for you. I can't help but think for our church as we step into a year of miracles, if God's not going, okay, but that can't come with. Like maybe that grudge that you're still holding on to from 2025, that one can't come with. The thing that happened back in April, that you're still kind of holding on to, maybe it's time to let it go. That doesn't make any sense. I know, that's why we don't lean on our own understanding. That's why we start to trust that God knows what God is doing. Maybe it's a vice for you. Maybe it's fear for you. fear that's keeping you from stepping into what you know God is calling you to do. I wonder right now at every single location if there may be some things that God's going, okay, but that can't come with you as you step into this presence, as you step into going, God, I am here for you right now. But when we do that, when we're willing to take off the proverbial sandal and step into God's presence, the amazing thing is that we get God's presence. And we start to realize that that presence is the promised land that we were after the whole time. And you do that this year, church, I'm telling you, you won't even recognize yourself a year from now.